Hey everybody, it's Dave Dugdale, learningvideo.com. This is a lighting review, yay! Everybody's like, lighting review, boo, because nobody seems to watch my lighting reviews, which I think are really important. This is a really cool light. It's only 300 bucks and it looks pretty darn good for 300 bucks. So what is it? This one has kind of an identity crisis. It's made by a company called LEDvideolights.com. I'm showing you some B-roll here of me assembling it after I modified it, but it comes around, like I said, $300. It's like I said, it's got a kind of identity crisis. I mean, they call it a 150 WA. Sometimes they call it a 150-56. Sometimes on their website they call it a 150W, and sometimes they call the name of their company iLED. Sometimes they just go by LED video lights. So it's kind of confusing exactly what they're trying to get at here, but for the most part, I'm just going to call this like the 150-56. So as you can see, it's not maybe like the best build quality, but for the price, it's not too bad. So let me just go in and jump into some tests here. So here we go. Fluorescent is on the left. The 150 is on the right. They're both mounted in soft boxes. And as you can see here, the fluorescent has this kind of dingy yellow feel. And this is the fluorescent I've been using for years. And I always knew it kind of had this issue. And as you can see right here on the lower right hand corner, we're at 5600K. I haven't done a green to magenta shift or anything. This is straight out of the camera in a daylight kind of setting. And as you can see on the right, or let's say just to the right side of the frame, that right, all right, I'll say my left cheek using the 150, it's a bit more magenta, but it doesn't have that kind of dingy yellow look that the fluorescent does. So let's go ahead and move on. Next up, we've got the C1500 RSV, which is a light I own. It's a very large light. It's actually made by the same company, sort of. Well, go watch my other video I just did on the Photo DX. I'm not going to even get into that part right now. So the 150 is on the right, mounted in the softbox. And as you can just see by looking at the two of them, you can see the 1500 maybe drifting a little bit more green. As you can see, the 150 is a bit on the more magenta side. So let's go ahead and look at my face. And as you can see here, we've got, the 150 doesn't look too bad on the right-hand side. And the 1500 doesn't look too bad either. It's a larger light source than the other one, I would think, in terms of square area. And it looks like I maybe overlit the left side or my right cheek a little bit too much. But they were, as you can see, they're kind of different. And I would say the 150 maybe is just a little bit too magenta for this particular test. All right, next up, I'm going to compare my C700 RSV, that one I did a review of before. It's actually made by iLED or Photo DX or whatever you want. It's maybe 18 inches in diameter. And again, the 150 mounted into a softbox. You can see the difference between the two here. What I'm trying to do here is just compare all the different lights I have to this 150. The 150 being on the right side there, you can see again a little bit more magenta, and the C700 is very similar to the 1500 that I purchased. They both match extremely well. I think they're using the exact same LEDs and kind of an edge lighting arrangement. All right, next up we have the halogen, which should have a CRI of 100. And now I'm comparing that to my 700 RSV just for kicks, because that's the only one I could knock down to a tungsten setting or a 3200K. And as you can see here, I've set the camera to 3200K. Haven't done any white or any sort of tint balance between green and magenta at all. I would actually say that I like the way the C700 actually looks on that side of the face more than the halogen. I was actually kind of surprised on that one. All right, now what I'm going to do here is the 150 is going to be on the left-hand side. As you can see, it's in a softbox. And then what I'm doing here is I'm going to compare it against natural daylight. And this is around 3 p.m. And I basically diffused the light. It was hitting that window really hard in the afternoon. And I'm using that and trying to compare that between the two. So let's take a look here. So on the left side, you can see the 150. Maybe a little bit yellowish, a little bit maybe warmer. And then you can see the sunlight, the daylight. That's what my skin should look like. That that looks totally correct. So, but the point here is it's pretty darn close. It's not that bad. You could definitely use it in a mixed lighting situation. Now here's the C700. This is the edge lighting technology with the about 18-inch diameter size. I know you can't see it in the frame right now, but compared to sunlight, this one is getting even a bit warmer. So this one might not match as well as the 150 does. All right, next up we have the Fluorescent, and this is sunlight. Now the sunlight is actually changed. I did this test maybe an hour later, and you can see it's getting warmer. But boy, the Fluorescent always got this kind of dingy, kind of yellowy, kind of gross kind of look to it. And I've been using it for years, and I've always had to correct for it. But as you can see, the example here, it doesn't work that well on my particular skin tones. All right, so the next test I'm going to do here is a comparison of the 1500 to the 700. Again, these are edge lighting technology. This is really not part of the review, but I just thought I'd throw this in here. And I don't know if you can see it, but there's a swipe actually going across. It's about halfway through the frame right now. And these colors match really, really well because they're using like the same exact LEDs. So you're not going to see much difference between the two. It's just that the 1500 is a larger source light, so you're going to see that difference. All right, next up is the Fluorescent on the left and the C700 on the right. You could tell that the Fluorescent, and these were custom white balance. These were not, we're not using 5600 anymore. You can see that in that gray right there as it's passing through. It's kind of a dingy yellow coming into the gray right there. And that's kind of what it does to your skin tones. And that's why I've been wanting to get away for a while from these fluorescents that I've been using. And the last one is the 150 on the left and the C700, which is that 18-inch diameter on the right. And as you can see, I put a lot of different colors in here just to see, in terms of the CRI, to see if they were, if I was losing any sort of color. As you can see, they match up fairly well. I'd actually say that the 150 is just a little bit more accurate than the 700 in terms of this lighting situation. All right, in this next test, this is a C700. I'm on auto ISO, and I'm adjusting the shutter speed all over the place. And I'm shooting kind of a white wall. And as you can see, there's really no banding or some patterns appearing that are scrolling up and down the screen. But when I go to the Fluorescent, here's the Fluorescent, and as you can see, as I'm basically playing around with the shutter speed, going from like 50th of a second to like 500th of a second, you can see those kind of horizontal lines starting to appear. So in terms of shooting for slow motion, the Fluorescent is definitely not the thing to use. But when you look at some of these other lights like the 1500, and I am just moving the shutter all over the place. Again, you can't see the change in exposure that much because I'm on auto ISO, but it does a fantastic job all the way up to 500th of a second. All right, and here's the 150. And I did notice this one once I got up around 320, between 320 and 500th of a second on the shutter. I could see some banding. Obviously, it was not as bad as the Fluorescent, but I could definitely see some banding going on there. And I ran a bunch of other tests with this 41-step chart. And as you can see, this is a 1500. It looks pretty decent at 5600K. Again, I'm not trying to custom white balance here. This is a 700. Looks, again, very similar. When we look at the Fluorescent, you can see it kind of has that kind of dingy yellow to it. And I'm basically shooting light through this translucent chart. And then we've got the 150. And again, you can kind of see it's got kind of that almost a little bit magenta look to it. All right, and these last tests that I want to show you, here's the 1500 at ISO 200 f5. I've custom white balanced at 5500K minus 1.75 green. Here's the 700 ISO 400 f5. It's 5500 minus 1.5 green. So I'm basically custom balancing and just showing you what the end result is without any processing. And as you can see, the iLED 150 is kind of a little bit yellowish kind of going on there. And then when we get to the Fluorescent, you can definitely see along my cheeks, kind of got that dingy yellow look to it. All All right, in terms of brightness, what I did is I put all the lights exactly the same distance away from me. I think it was like 52 inches. Yeah, it was 52 inches. The iLED 1500 was the brightest. And then going down from there was the fluorescent, and it was 2/3 of a stop less bright than the 1500. The 700 and the 150-56 was one stop less than that from the large 1500. I know I'm using a lot of numbers here, but basically the big one, the brightest, the fluorescent, 2/3 of a stop, and then the other two were a stop less than that really big one. And obviously if you're using a softbox like I was, it's probably going to cut the light a little bit too. So again, those were taken 52 inches away, and I measured it with a gray card, just so you guys know. So that's pretty much it. I'm just trying to share my knowledge. I just put out a video today, a couple hours ago, on the Sony a7R II, which I'm actually filming with, by the way. And it's actually on autofocus, so which does a really good job. I'm looking down at my monitor here. I don't know if it's gone in or out because I haven't reviewed the footage yet, but for the most part, even when I turn my head, it tracks it pretty well. And I'm shooting at f2.2, which is pretty amazing. This does not work that well when you're shooting on the A7S II. And actually, since I've turned my head, it's probably just focused on that, but most of the part, yeah, I can see it just lost it. I would never do this on the A7S II. Anyway, so I did this course, this video on the course, and I had a couple of negative comments right off the bat. One person was like, "You're selling out. You're making these videos and you've sold out. All you're doing are these paid courses." And I'm like, really? I don't know. What have I got? 400 videos on my channel, and I'm sharing all this knowledge for free? And I put out like maybe, I don't know, 5-6 years I've had this channel. I've put out maybe 2 or 3 or 4 heavily promoted videos. All I did was talk about was a certain course or a thing I wanted to make money off of. And they're complaining about unsubscribing because I don't share stuff. I'm like, I'm sharing stuff all the time. Anyway. Now, there was another guy that complained that I was, in one of my free videos, it was the first one at the 1 minute mark, he was complaining about I was not shooting in the sweet spot of the lens when I was demonstrating this particular feature, which is a punch and zoom. And I was like, no, I was just showing that as you can punch in, there's certain points on the a7R II when you zoom in, like there's a 4x and then a 12.5x zoom, and some of them look smearier or harder to focus with than the others. I was just making a comparison. I wasn't, and he saw that I was shooting at f11. He said that I didn't know anything. I'm like, all right, I guess I don't know anything. You don't have to buy the course. You don't have to watch any of my, I'm sorry. I've got a bad attitude right now, but not many people watch these videos anyway on these lights. So, all right, I'm rambling. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.